The financial revolution, it's here. And this is what you need to do right now because there's a populist tide that's rising across the country and the world. And it's rapidly changing the financial markets and the entire system. Now, while many people, they're focused on what happened with Wall Street bets, Reddit, GameStop, Robinhood, all that whole mess, that whole us versus them, that whole Main Street versus Wall Street storyline, which is cool, but most people missed the fundamental shifts that it caused that's gonna have a massive impact. Now, in this video, I'm gonna break down a little trip through history, of course, so we can see what we can learn. We're gonna look at the signs that we can see that we're on the same track right now, what this deep hidden undercurrent is, and of course, how to navigate it, what these changes mean to the country, our freedom, and our finances, and of course, how I plan to navigate these rough seas for myself, for my family, and how you can do the same thing for financial safety. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos because my goal is to change the way that you think about money, because everything you've been taught, it's wrong. And if you can learn to understand, to learn how to navigate the late stage of this monetary shift that's happening, you can do it correctly, then you're gonna find yourself on the receiving end of one of the largest wealth transfers in history. So if you like these topics and you want to help me get these topics to more people, just take one quick second, click on that like button so it sends it out to more people, and then subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell notification. All right, now one last thing real quick before we jump into this. This is a pretty deep subject and I'm gonna go deep dive into this. I'm gonna do it all live and you can come completely for free. There's a link down in the description below where I'm gonna break this video down into pretty great detail and give you a detailed plan of exactly how to navigate what I'm talking about right now. So again, link is down below. But let's go ahead and just jump right into it. Okay, so before we jump into this, you know what I like to do. I like to go back through history. I believe if we study history, it tells us a lot of what's going on. Of course, history doesn't always repeat, but it definitely rhymes. So let's just jump back in the time machine. We're gonna go back to about 72 years ago. The year was 1933. Lots of big things happened around that year, and so I reference it quite a bit. But right now, we're talking about in 1933, the climate of the country was similar to what we're seeing right now. There was a massive populist uprising. The people were not happy with the current system that we had. At that time, FDR was president and he declared a New Deal, the Great New Deal. And he said at that time that his New Deal saved capitalism. Of course, at that same year, that was the year that the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, was put into place. So the SEC, Securities and Exchange Commission, supposedly was put into place, of course, for your protection, for our protection, right? So keeps the regular investors out of the very best deals, of course, for our protection. But we're gonna come back to that. But I just wanted to highlight this. 72 years ago, a populist uprising, and it was met by what? Regulations by the SEC. All right, we'll come back to that, but let's go ahead and jump back to current day where we're at. And so in current day America, and really for the world, we are in what we call the everything bubble. There's bubbles everywhere we look. Everywhere we look, there's bubbles, and there's serious signs of trouble everywhere that we look. Again, we're seeing this populist uprising. We're gonna get more into that in a minute, but we're seeing the same kind of mood happen across the country and the world. Pre-pandemic, there was about 8 different countries, all with about 1 million people each, marching and protesting at the same time. That's what we call populism, right? That's what we're talking about. Now we'll talk about it more, but basically, like I said, we saw the GameStop, Reddit, take on Wall Street. And that is a leading indicator of exactly what I'm talking about. So I don't want to dive into that. We've made videos about that, but it's really what is that telling us? And it's telling us that we're seeing this populist uprising and of course, more signs of serious trouble, bubbles everywhere. We have all 3 stock indexes, all-time highs. We have, of course, Bitcoin, all-time high. Gold's almost back to its all-time high. We have, IPOs hitting the market that are just breaking records like Dash, like Snow. We have the rise of these SPACs, the SPACs, and they are, basically blank checks people are writing for these investment funds to go do whatever they want. And so that's just one more sign. And with all of this madness that's going on, who's watching? Who's paying attention? Who's supposed to be guarding? Who's supposed to be protecting? Who's got their eye on the ball? Of course, it's these 2 people on the screen behind me. If you can see that, I'm talking about Janet Yellen, the new Treasury Secretary, and of course, Jerome Powell, who's the head of the Federal Reserve. Now, I've made several videos about this before, how they're coming together, and the specific reason why I thought Janet Yellen was chosen to go into that position, she was already head of the Fed, and now she's coming in the Treasury. And the reason why is we need the two, or not we, But their plan is to have the two working in concert together, to bring the Treasury and the Fed together to push both monetary and fiscal stimulus at the same time. Of course, why? What does that mean? It means an unprecedented amount of new stimulus that's going to be going out. Of course, just this year in 2021 alone, we have the $900 billion that already got approved at the end of last year, but it's going out this year. We have the $1.9 trillion that got approved that's about to go out, and now they're already talking about $3 trillion. And so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about unprecedented amounts of stimmy. Now, there's this massive undercurrent that's going on below all this, below the system. All right, and this is that populism I'm talking about. This is the people are rising up. They're tired of the way these so-called elites are treating them and things like that. And so taking on Wall Street, taking on the financial elite, what we saw, like I said, with Wall Street Bets and Reddit, was a big sign of that problem. Of course, like I said, we've been seeing it happening all over the world, but now it's really happening right here in the United States. And it seems like politics are more divided than ever before. I think it's pretty easy for most people to say that. I'm not here to choose sides, but what we're seeing with this populism, this undercurrent rising of populism, is that it seems that people on both sides of the political aisle, as far apart as they are in agreement on that. So we have like AOC and Senator Elizabeth Warren on one side, which are very extreme over here. We have, Ted Cruz and Don Trump Jr. over here that are on the exact opposite. I mean, Ted Cruz and AOC could not probably hate each other more, I would guess, but they're fighting for the same thing. They both agree that this is a bad problem and they both want to do something to it. Now, if we needed anything to further prove this to the people, to further prove that they were getting screwed, I should say to pull back the curtain and show them exactly the underworkings of how this goes, that's where we go back to the GameStop, the Robinhood. And this really proved it out for everybody, what everybody already knew. And so we saw that Wall Street was moving against a retail company that millennials really seem to have a soft spot for, playing video games. And of course, what happened? Reddit, GameStop, they fired back, and we got the general public to go fire back and squeeze their shorts. We've done videos about that. I'm not going to go into it. But what's important is that what we saw behind the curtain, we saw Wall Street come and flex their muscle. We saw them go get bailed out. They lost about $3 billion, and instead of going bust like you and I would if we made the wrong bet, nope. They just went and got bailed out. But it wasn't that they just went and got bailed out. On top of going and getting bailed out, they went and got Reddit to shut down the forum. They went and got Discord to shut down their servers. They went and got Robinhood to halt trading. And they basically shut the whole thing down, halted trading. Now, I always like to say, of course, I like to break things down. It's very simple, that markets stop going up when there's no more buyers. And so as people were piling in, as people were buying that, it was squeezing the short. And how do you stop that? Well, you stop buying. That's exactly what they did. They shut down the news. They put the whole media against the retail trader, not the hedge funds. And so I think for the first time, well, not for the first time, but definitely it really magnified the fact that Wall Street is in on this. They're flexing the muscle against the retail traders. And of course, who comes to the rescue? The government does, right? The government comes to the rescue. And kind of like we saw in the housing crisis in 2008, the mortgage brokers, the bankers, the investment bankers, basically collapsed the entire financial system of the entire world by creating this financial sausage, these mortgage-backed securities that they were trading back and forth. They didn't even know what was in them. If you've never watched the movie The Big Short, you definitely should. But when it happened, they blamed you and I. It was us. It was mom and pop. We bought too many homes. I was too greedy. We crashed the system. But really, it was the bankers. And that's what we're seeing right now. It wasn't that the hedge funds are creating the problem. No, it's the individual retail investors. So as I said, right, the government is coming to the rescue. And of course, Senator Elizabeth Warren is hot on the case. You can see maybe up on the screen, she sent a letter directly to the SEC over this whole GameStop, Reddit, Robinhood saga. And what is she calling for? Quote unquote, calling for more regulation. We got the Congress, we got the SEC, we got the Justice Department, we got the Attorney Generals. They're all coming in for more regulation of the market. We're seeing antitrust things, consumer protections, and of course, all the public is sitting there waiting, saying, yes, regulate them, regulate them, regulate them, right? They're cheering it on as a populist would. It's all just smoke and mirrors. It doesn't really mean anything. It makes for a good story. It makes us think something's happening, but it's really not. So while most people are cheering on the revolt of the public, yeah, stick it to those hedge funds, stick it to Wall Street, we're seeing, and they want the ordinary people to win. They want the ordinary people to win back on Wall Street, triumph over it. really what we're seeing underneath the smoke and mirrors, the sleight of hand, is we're seeing the shift of power from the elite or from the public back to the elite, using these new regulations that are going in. And what they're really doing is rewriting the rules mid-game. So imagine if we were playing a game, and we all know what the rules are. We're playing, football, for example, right? And at halftime, we go into the locker room, and I come back out and say, well, we won. We're leading, so we're just going to call the game right here. Like, you can't just change the game mid-rules, but that's exactly what they're doing to us right now. Now, unfortunately, because of this, the media assumes that the small investors wins. And of course, they ran headlines about, this guy made this much money and this Robinhood trader made this much money. And so you think the little guy finally got one over on the big firms. But of course, that's just an assumption. And as a matter of fact, the informed insiders, they always win. They have the information. And so unfortunately, the professional investors, they are the ones that hold the edge. The Reddit ones, they're ideological, right? They're ideological. They put out reports saying, I'm doing this to stick it to Wall Street. And so their ideology has them hold out. And unfortunately, they're the ones that lose the most. So the most informed win, and the ones with the least information, they lose, kind of like the old Peanuts cartoon here, where she just pulls the ball away, the old rug pull, as we call it. Now, the real dangers that we're facing right now because of this undercurrent of populism, is free market capitalism is under attack. Now, capitalism is a very often misused word, misquoted, misunderstood. And so I like to really say free market in front of that. And so we're seeing free market capitalism coming under attack. And of course, how? Senator Elizabeth Warren is calling for more regulations. That's exactly what happens. And so as you can see, the guy here on the screen, he's got the red tape. He's trying to get ahead, but there's just something holding him back. There's just something holding him back, and that is cronyism taking over. So cronyism is the corporations, the Robinhoods, the hedge funds, using the government to put regulations on the people so they get their way while it holds us back. And that's the real danger that we seem to be facing right now. But bigger than that, the big problem that we have is this populist uprising, because this is making the people angry. And by putting more regulations to allow the Wall Street elite to win even more, only makes them even more angry. But it's even bigger than that. And I've talked about this in several videos before, and it really boils down to something super, super fragile and super, super important. And that thing is called trust. Now, if the public loses trust in the markets, in the stock markets, if the public sees the stock market as just being full of predators trying to prey on victims and take advantage of them, like we're seeing here, and they really look at the stock market as providing no value to the community, to the country, well, then they're going to continue to fight back. Not only will they fight back, but they're going to withdraw and they'll want to get out of it. And so what happens then? Well, we start seeing more constraints. We start seeing more stock market losses, which only compounds the anger and compounds the growth of this populist uprising. So what are we going to do about all this? Because this is a big, big shift that's happening. It happens about every 90 years. We're heading into this right now. We're going to do another video about that where I'm going to talk about the 4 cycles and how we're in what's called the 4th turning now. Leave me a comment and let me know if you want that video. But how are we going to win? How do we navigate this? Well, the first thing that we have to do, of course, is we have to understand the game. So obviously, there is a set of rules that they're playing by, even though they can change them midstream, but we have to understand the game that we're in. And so most people think there's like a even playing field, and you have to understand that there's not. When I was young, I started traveling a lot. I wanted to get a bunch of stories so I could be this interesting guy. And we went all through Europe, and they would have these games where they would have these cups, and they would hide something under the cup and they'd shuffle them around. And I tried to play that game a couple times, and I knew the game. I knew that they were going to try to sleight of hand me, and he was going to try to scam me somehow. And so I knew the game, and so I was watching intently because I understood the game, right? And that's kind of how it is right now. We understand what the game is, and so we have to be really careful. But on top of it, the second thing we have to do is we have to be able to act quickly, because as I said, they can change these rules midstream on us. All right, we saw that after the GameStop thing, they wanted the silver squeeze, and then we saw the silver ETF rewrite the rules right away on how much silver they had to hold. And so they're rewriting the rules midstream. We have to be ready for that. And then, of course, the third and final way, the most important way to win this is to not play the game at all. And so, of course, I talk about getting our money out of the financial system, taking it out into hard, real, tangible assets. And so that is the ultimate strategy. That's how we win. Don't play the game with them. The real wealth isn't made in the stock market after all. And so there's much better ways to get rich, to build wealth, and to preserve your wealth for future generations. All right, so that's what I got. If you want to know more, I'm going to break it down into details. There's a link down below. You can come to the free training I'm going to do. It's about an hour long because I want to go super deep and give you all the best value. You can find the link down below. But other than that, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Either way, I just want to hear what your feedback is. Of course, if you give me a thumbs down, leave me a comment. I try to reply to every single comment I can, at least for the first day or two. All right, and that's what I got for you today. To your success, I'm out.